Hey there, guys. Thank you for joining us. We are live. So good to see you. Ready to record the 91st, 91 episodes in of the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. Happy to have you joining us and happy to have our guest. It's Misty Thompson, one of the more fascinating people I've met. Very excited to speak with you. How are you feeling today?
Really good. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
My absolute pleasure. Let me lower this. So good. There you go. Clicked all the right buttons. And good to see everybody who's joining us here. As always, if you have thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, ideas, feedback along the way, type them there. I love reading them in real time. Where are you sitting right now? In Arizona?
Yes. Southeastern Arizona. Yes.
How is it living there?
Well, my town is very small, so it's kind of boring, but no, but not too bad. No, I love it. I love especially love the winters. Not very, pretty mild. But yeah, I love it. I was born and raised in Arizona and I love it here. Definitely.
Excellent. Like I said before we went on, there's just so much that I love exploring in these handful of related topics and themes that you bring to the table. Very excited about this, from grief to acceptance. Thank you for the copy.
Sure.
Like I told you, the minute I got this, I didn't expect. I just started reading from the beginning, and 80 pages later, I'm just engrossed. It's that kind of a story and a guide of how to go from grief to acceptance. And I'm not going to ask you questions now because I want to save them for the recording, but so good. And thank you for really just sharing. I guess that was part of the process, getting it out. That was cathartic.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It was the follow-up to my first book, By Your Side, and it talks about my sister. And when I wrote that book, By Your Side, all of these things started coming up as far as the lessons that I write in Grief to Acceptance. So yeah, it just kind of filtered right back into there. It was just perfect. Yeah.
And I know one of the things we're going to talk about, and that you is a part of you, is how your sister is with you today. Was that something that happened later in the process? In other words, it wasn't always the case.
You know what? Looking back now, I know she was always with me, but I didn't realize that she was with me. Didn't know that she was there. And in my first book, I kind of talk about it. I don't know how much you want to get into now, but my sister was missing for 55 days.
Yes.
And during that time, she was coming to me and nobody believed me. And I'm sure a lot of people who've had death in the family, have that vibe that, hey, I feel like my loved one came to me in a dream, but that's exactly what happened. But she was asking for help and asking for forgiveness. So it was really hard. I knew she was with me at that time, but I felt like she went away. And then as I was getting closer to retirement, I realized that she was with me more, that I was noticing it more.
All right. I want to talk about this on the show, right? Because there's
definitely.
A lot of good, powerful stuff. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to hit record. I'm ready. Again, I'm happy to see you guys attending live. Keep the conversation going here, and we'll get episode 91 going with Misty Thompson.
Yes.
Here we go. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. You're tuned right into the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Josh Carey. Imagine this worst case scenario. Your sibling goes missing, and after a grueling 55-day search, you receive the devastating news that her body has been discovered in the Arizona desert. It's an apparent murder that to this day remains unsolved. You are left with more questions than answers. And further, You work in the state's prison, where showing any kind of emotion or vulnerability is not allowed or encouraged and is seen as a sign of weakness. So, how in the world do you process this and handle the grief you so desperately need to work through? This is the real life story of our guest today. Meet Misty Thompson. Misty lived through this horrific ordeal and has successfully navigated her way through the grieving process. She's the author of the new book, From Grief to Acceptance, and is an intuitive spiritual life coach. Misty is here to discuss how we can shift the paradigm of judgment through the grieving process to compassion and integrate this as our new norm in life and business. I'm ready to go. Help me welcome Misty Thompson. How are you?
Thank you.
You're doing well.
Here. Yeah, it's so exciting to be here.
Good. Likewise. So good to have you. Whew, so many places to begin. So let me start here. Let's just talk about grief as a whole.
Sure.
Why do you think, from your experience now, we know that grief is such a universal experience? It's something we're all inevitably going to experience at some point or at multiple points in our lives. Why do you think then it has this stigma where it's not given the proper respect? Why does it have this air and this sign of showing weakness if you were to properly grieve for yourself as such a human nature part of everything we're doing here?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, people don't really know how to talk about it because everybody grieves differently. So it's not like you can say, oh, this is what's going to happen, because we don't understand how each of us are going to experience it. And, you could have two people going through the same grieving, or have a sibling and two other siblings that are alive, and they're going to experience it totally different. And, and I think it's hard for people to pinpoint that. And, showing weakness maybe shows that for some people that they're too attached to a person, and it's, a lot of us have shields up, and I have at one point, because we don't want to get hurt. And I think if you show weakness, it shows that, hey, I do care. And, I can't let people know I care, then they're going to treat me differently, So yeah, it's a really difficult thing to talk about and to heal from, for sure.
So your story, so many elements to it. Your sister went missing in the summer of 1993. So that's almost 26 years ago now. She was 23 at the time.
Yes, she was
and
23
you were
at the time.
And you were how old?
I was just turned 25. We're 18 months apart. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys grew up close, I imagine.
Yes, so close. We had that love-hate thing going on, as siblings do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And it was just the two of you as the siblings in the family.
Yeah, no other siblings.
Wow. So going through this process, I can't imagine anything remotely close to that specific thing. So it happens in 1993. 55 days later, you get that horrific news. And now, what are you doing in life professionally? Are you in the prison system yet, working in the prison?
Yeah, I was already working for the prison, and I had three small children.
Oh, you had three children at that time?
Yeah, yes.
Wow.
My oldest daughter was 7, and I have twins, and they were like 2.5 at the time.
Oh, so you had to, now forgetting about your professional career, now you have to figure out how you're going to show up with and for them.
Yeah,
this
definitely.
Very unique.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And my daughter, she was pretty attached to her aunt. So it was really difficult to try to explain what was going on to a 7-year-old,
Wow. And I'm sure with, I mean, 55 days of the unknown is one thing. How do we talk about this? How do I process it? How do I share it with these young children And
Yes.
then when you get the news of what's happened, still all these unanswered questions, but then you have a whole other scenario to determine. Forget about how I'm going, what's the grieving process like ahead of me, but now how as a mother do you even begin to bring that to the table?
Yeah, I tried to be as honest as possible. Of course, my boys, my twins, they were 2.5, so they didn't really know too much. But my daughter was kind of involved, and she was, most kids that age, pretty curious, asking a lot of whys. And, I just tried to be as honest as I could without being, there was a lot of behind the scenes things that I didn't really want her to be involved with or know about. So on top of being there for my mom to support her in whatever she needed, I had my job, I had my children, and I kind of had to put all my feelings and things on hold because I was trying to be there for other people and try to decide, and that's like I was saying, the wall goes up. I try to be just numb from everything.
So between that family life and I know the juxtaposition of you're working in a federal prison, we spoke about that,
Yes.
and you admitted that that's not the place to break down, to take a moment, to show any weakness. So where did you find any outlet in your time in a day while you weren't sleeping?
Yeah, you know what? I think what a lot of people do is I just I just didn't absorb it. I just blocked it.
Hmm.
And instead of dealing with it, I pushed it down and I ignored it as best as I could. And it's like I tried to imagine that this wasn't really my life. It was just kind of like I was just going through the motions kind of thing. That's not healthy. I know that now. But I think a lot of people do that. They just kind of numb themselves, whether they push it down, whether they turn to drugs and alcohol or whatever it is for them. And I was that same way. I just kind of threw myself into my work, tried to do the best I could at work and just try to ignore distraction, you know, yeah.
We're all familiar with the standard known 5 stages of grief, and in your book here again, a fascinating read, From
Yeah.
Grief to Acceptance. You talk about the 5 encouraging phases of grief, and I'll read them out here. You talk about love over fear, vulnerability over shame, compassion over judgment, forgiveness over resentment, and gratitude over guilt. Tell me how did you navigate through that? How and why did you come up with that?
Yes. Well, like I was saying at the beginning, I wrote my first book, By Your Side, and it was about my sister's. A lot of it was about her missing, and I took a lot of it from my mom's journals. And as I was writing that, I had thought I had dealt with the grief, and I hadn't. And with that, all of these things started coming through, and that's when I started coming up with these 5 encouraging phases. Because, like you said, we have this standard, oh, you're going to go through anger, denial, blah, and they're just so heavy and dense and depressing. And don't get me wrong, I went through those, but I'll just say I was told by my sister that look at it from this point of view. Look at it from this, we're all going to lose people. And first and foremost, love is so important. Whether it's, and at the time, my sister and I didn't show each other a lot of love. We had the sibling rivalry, but in that moment when she had passed and she was coming to me while she was missing, I knew there was something bigger, and I knew that she did truly love my divine being. So yeah, so all of those just kind of started showing themselves as I was writing the book, By Your Side. And it came from my sister, like, look at it from this perspective. It's okay to show your emotions. You just have to, I mean, obviously you're not going to be in the middle of the grocery store breaking down every day but be mindful of that. But it's okay if you need a moment to stay in your room and cry. That's okay. or I was at work when all of this was going on. And all of a sudden I was typing away and I just started crying. And thank goodness my supervisor, he understood. And so we have a psychology department. So he walked me over to psychology and I was able to take some time. So, I mean, you just have to know it's okay to be vulnerable and all of those things. But I learned all of this from my sister after she passed.
We're going to get deep into that, but one thing you said stuck out, that you took a lot from your mom's journal.
Yes.
What was that? She was
Yes.
deliberately keeping notes and writing.
Yeah. My mom knew from the moment, because she talked to us almost every day, and she knew something was wrong. And she went to the local law enforcement, to the sheriff's office. They did not want anything to do with it. They didn't believe her. They thought she was crazy. That's a whole nother story. There's a big problem with all of that. But so my mom documented everything, every single day, what was going on for 55 days, even afterwards, actually. Every day, this is who I contacted. This is what happened. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do. I mean, she documented everything, like, oh, even if she was feeling good, I'm feeling pretty good today. I feel very hopeful, just whatever was coming up for her that day. So a lot of the book of By Your Side, I took from her journals, and a lot of it, I didn't even know. She protected me during that time because of my job, because of my children. We didn't know what was happening and what was going on and what was happening. My sister was missing. We did not know or understand. So my mom did the best she could to protect me and my kids. And my husband, he's now my ex-husband, but my husband at the time, to keep me out of all of that.
So 55 days, and this is 1993. So this is pre-cell phones, pre-email, all of that. So during that time, especially during the first days and maybe the first weeks, is this just looked at as a missing persons case? And I imagine you all within your family and you personally, you had to keep hope alive.
Yes, right. Sure. Yeah, we definitely did. It was kind of considered a missing persons, but small town politics and all of that. My sister was involved with the not so great group of people. And the sheriff at the time was, not that up and up. And she knew some things about him that she was threatening to expose. And then all of a sudden she comes up missing. So there's like a whole conspiracy of what really happened. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're saying your sister knew things about the sheriff of the town?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. What happened was my sister, like I said, she was involved with some people that weren't very up and up. So she was with her ex-husband. Her ex-husband owned a tire business here in town. But he would have drugs being shipped in from like Tucson in these tires. Well, supposedly the sheriff knew about this, and her ex-husband was a snitch, and he would let the sheriff know, hey, I sold drugs to this person, this person, this person. And then the sheriff would go make drug busts.
Wow.
And so it made him look great that, hey, I'm getting these drugs off the street. Well, my sister knew about all this, and she was threatening to come forward. And then a few days later, she came up missing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a crazy story.
Yeah. So tell me now about this. You've been saying that you were through this process, you were told by your sister and your sister's with you. Tell me really what that means, what that looks like. What is that relationship today?
Yeah. Well, like I said, she was coming to me. We were having conversations, and I still feel that today. And I feel like I'm closer to her now than I was back then. But in order for her to move on, they say to move towards the light, she needed me to forgive her because, like I said, we had that sibling rivalry and we did not get along at times. And so I, of course, had to forgive her. I didn't have to. I wanted to forgive her. And as a result, she was able to move, where she needed to go. And I was able to move forward a little bit more with my life. And it was interesting because I feel like we helped each other spiritually. We both helped each other. I helped her in the sense of forgiveness. She helped me in the sense of being able to see the bigger picture, because I knew she was okay. I knew she wasn't going to be found, or at that time. I knew it was going to be later. I knew that it didn't matter how she died. I knew that, and I was okay with it way before my mom was. And I just lived my life knowing that there was a bigger thing out there, a bigger purpose, a bigger energy source, God, whatever people want to call it. And my sister was now part of it, as most people who pass away are. And now today, she guides me all the time. I retired 4 years ago as a result. I have my business now. I see clients. I am creating online courses. I'm doing all these things. I'm doing this show. I'm, doing books, and it's all because of my sister. These opportunities are given to me. And I know without a doubt, I mean, of course, I'm open to them. I'm choosing to step into those opportunities, but my sister is right there with me, guiding me, helping me, making sure I'm doing what's best for my good.
Do you think, do you think we all have that ability to connect with loved ones who have passed?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think people do more than they realize it. It's one of those things, like a song will come on the radio and it'll be like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of my mom or my love, my husband, wife, whatever. And, it kind of makes you feel sad, or it kind of gives you chills. That is your loved one, reaching out saying, hey, I'm still here, I'm with you, that kind of thing. We see these things all the time, or they do come to people in their dreams, or just coincidences that remind you of your loved ones. Those are messages from your loved ones. Those are signs that they are with you still today.
One of the most powerful chapters in the book that still resonates with me, that seems quite obvious, is when you were going through the anger and resentment for it, saying, well, why did she have to allow that to happen? Why'd she make those choices? If this, if that, if then. I'm sure that was extremely powerful and emotionally charged for you. How do you get on the other side of that? Because that seems like such an easy path for anybody to go down in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Honestly, and it's faith, it's trust, it's believing that there is a reason for these things. Believing that God or creator has a bigger purpose for them and for us. And that's how it started for me. I believed and I had faith and I trusted, um, all those things I learned from the Bible, that, and I don't want to get too religious, but that's where it stemmed from for me, is, realizing that there is something bigger and better. And I do believe without a doubt that my sister would have passed away somehow at that time. Wow. But she chose how it happened. And I say that because she chose her life, and she chose to associate with her ex-husband, who was not a very great person. And so we make choices like that every day. And as a result, she passed away. But I do believe that she was going to pass anyway. And I know that's kind of getting deep, but it could have been a car accident. It could have been, but I feel like, and I do believe this, that we are on a path, and our path is written for us loosely, but we make choices, and we have free will, so we can make those choices how it's going to happen for us. And for her, she chose that. And it was so hard for me to understand that. Like, why would you do that? Why would you get involved with the wrong people? You had to know this wasn't going to end well, and in my mind, I'm yelling at her, I'm upset with her. But then I realized that we do have free will, and that was her choice. And it's not up to me to decide and judge it. It's not up to me to say, oh, it's right or wrong. That's not up to me. That's her life. And that's what my life is about. I get to make my free will choices, and they're different than hers. And that's perfectly okay. And that's how it is definitely supposed to be. So,
I'm currently reading the book, The Seat of the Soul, and
yeah.
it touches upon that whole thing that you just detailed, where our soul is here to experience all of this, and when it receives all of the knowledge and things that it needs to, it willfully releases from the body and carries on
Mhm.
by choice. And it also gets into karma and paying karmic debts and all
Absolutely.
that. So I hear what you're saying. I've
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, the more I learn about that, the more it makes so much sense to me, for sure, doing
Yeah.
that. Hmm. Definitely.
let's let's go back to the beginning. I want to get a sense of your upbringing
Mhm.
in the context of your family with your sister growing up. What was life like for you growing up as a child?
It was pretty chaotic. um, and it was the 70s, um, again, no cell phones, nothing like that, and my mom and dad didn't always get along. And my mom and dad got together because my mom got pregnant with me. So right there, then and there, it was, back then it was like, you got her pregnant, you'll marry her, that kind of thing. And they really should not have been together long term. They just didn't get along. My dad had a temper. Um, yeah, so it was just very up and down. My mom and dad would fight a lot. We would leave. My mom would take us and leave. We lived in the Phoenix area. We would come to Thatcher, Stafford area where my grandmother lived. And then we would go back, and it was just back and forth, back and forth. And finally, when I was 10, my mom and dad divorced. And my mom stayed here, remarried. And then again, it was still kind of chaotic with my stepdad. Didn't make it any better, that's for sure. So during all of that, my sister definitely, you know, took those experiences, and I believe she took it more to heart than I
Mm,
did. And I think that's what kind of guided her to these choices. She didn't really feel like she belonged or fit in. And here, I
mm.
thought I was the one who didn't fit in, but it's really interesting. But, my dad and my mom is doing a lot better now, but my dad still carries a lot of guilt because he feels like he could have been a better father. And I try to explain to him, I lived through the same experiences, and I did okay. So a lot of it is free will,
So
as we grow older.
so you have a relationship with both
Mhm.
of your parents today?
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
my dad lives in Arizona. He lives in northern Arizona. I don't see him that much, but I do talk to him. And even when my mom and dad were divorced, we used to go visit my dad regularly, as much as we could, summers, some holidays, that kind of thing. But yeah, my sister, I think she just had a different way of dealing with all of the chaos and
mm.
turmoil that we were experiencing. Me, I used it to fuel me to be better and to realize I don't want to live like that, and I don't want my children to live like that someday. My sister took it as, this is how we're supposed to live, but it's supposed to be more chaotic. Her life was a lot
Mm.
of chaos too. So.
What led you into the prison
Mhm.
system?
Honestly, it was a good job for the area, and my daughter was young, so I needed a good job with benefits. And here in this town, it's a very small town, so we can either work for the mine. We have a copper mine here in town, or we can work for a state prison or a federal prison. Those are the good jobs. And I chose the federal prison because I felt like that was the best job. And it gave me benefits to help with my daughter. So yeah, so that's how I was there. Honestly, I did not plan on staying there forever. Well, it felt like forever, but it really wasn't. So, but ended up, I started as a secretary and I just moved my way up. And when I retired in 2015, I was a department head and I had, I was running the business office. And so I had made my way up. And then as I got closer to retirement, I did realize, wow, we're federal law enforcement officers. I can retire in, I only have to work 25 years. I mean, you can't say that at a whole lot of places. So I stuck with it. And yeah.
How quote unquote different do you think everything would have been for your process if you were just in corporate America at a desk working a 9 to 5 with all the freedom that you could handle?
It would, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, that's for sure.
Tell me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that way 100% because I would still be working and I would have just kept ignoring my calling. I would have pushed it down, which so many of us do because we have to pay the bills. So we just take the job that we can get and, I know people I work with, my clients, they would much rather be doing something else, whatever it is. And they just can't because fear, they can't because they have a decent job now and they can't let it go because what if I don't get money and what if, the fear thing kind of comes in. No doubt in my mind, I would have been right there with them. I would have been experiencing the fear like, oh, I can't leave this job. I don't want to leave this job. I'm afraid, that kind of thing. So I definitely would not be where I'm at today.
So what was it specifically about the prison environment that allowed you to get to this?
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, it wasn't a lot of freedom, like you said, because I couldn't be vulnerable. I had to block my emotions. But the good thing about it was I learned so much from different people. Because it was a prison, we had different types of people there. And we had different staff from all over the United States. We had inmates from Mexico, even illegal aliens, and we had from all over the United States. So I got to see and learn from all different types of people. And interestingly, too, I learned more from the inmates than the staff. And the inmates were, I had a better relationship with inmates than I did with staff, in a sense, because with the inmates, as long as you were fair and you were honest with them, you didn't have a problem. But it's, the staff, some of them were kind of sneaky and, insecure, where inmates were just like, hey, this is it. Here I am, and I'm trying to be a little politically correct. I don't want to, but, with the inmates, as long as I was upfront with them, they were fine with me. I had more problems with staff than inmates, honestly. And,
so it sounds like everything was designed perfectly in your life.
Yeah, it really was. At the time, it didn't seem like it. And I think with a lot of people, it is designed perfectly for their life too. But, we focus a lot on the bad, just like the stages of grief, all the heavy, dark, dense emotions. It's always the negative part of things. And people look at the bad things of their life or their career instead of what can I learn from this to advance me? And that's exactly what happened. And a lot of it, without a doubt, my sister, like I was saying, my sister guided me, not necessarily with the prison. I was already working there, but opportunities that allowed me to retire when I could. And, just learning from the inmates and those kinds of things. And the job, it is crazy because being a department head, we have to do these collateral duties, and mine was public information officer. not realizing that I would be someday doing television interviews, you know, these kind of interviews, whereas I've had, you know, formal training for media relations because I was that public information officer at the prison. At the time, I had no clue that was going to happen, but opportunity presented itself. I knew there was a reason why, more than just the prison. And I stood up and I volunteered. Well, I was kind of voluntold, but
I love that term.
Yeah, voluntold. But I did step up and I owned it, and I took it, and I instead of complaining about it, I took it, and I knew that someday I'm gonna use this to my benefit. Don't know how, don't know why, don't know where, when, but I'm gonna look at the positive of it and take that collateral duty that I was voluntold to do, and I was going to move on, and I looked at the positive from it, and as a result, it is helping me now in the future. Instead of complaining about it, I looked at the positive of it.
What did you learn most about yourself? Because I can imagine at times like this, you have to, you're faced with an honesty about you as a person, what you're capable of and what you're made of. What comes up there?
Well, it's funny because, you know, we all do this to ourselves, and I'm still guilty of it. I still don't feel like I'm that strong or I've accomplished that much. I mean, I have learned that I can be who I am, and it's okay, and I should be who I am. So it's funny that I learned about that it's okay to be who I truly am, and I need to own it, and I am embracing that. And the more I do that, the more happiness I'm finding in my life. So it's kind of funny, it kind of around in a circle, but yeah, I learned about myself exactly that I can truly be who I am, and it's okay. But I do feel like there's so much more I need to do, and I feel like there's so much more that I need to accomplish, and I don't really feel like I have accomplished that much, because so many people can do that too if they just listen to their inner guidance and they just throw fear out the window and just take up on opportunities that are presented to them and not question them, you know.
Well,
and I think that's what I did.
Well, now you're speaking my language. I mean, this whole brand, the Hidden Entrepreneur, was created out of the fact that I was hiding all of my power, standing behind fear, using that as an excuse. What's one of the biggest tips you can give us for releasing that judgment and just moving through it? If we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. The first thing is to honestly just know you're not alone. You're not alone. And the more you judge others and yourself, the more you're going to be judged. So just have an awareness of that. You know, you have to remember that we've had these habits for so long. It's not going to happen overnight. So being patient with yourself, but having that awareness and just, you know, just even that one little time a day, just having an awareness and switching the comment from judgment to something positive will make a huge difference, because you do it once, it's going to build more and more and more.
Yeah, I get it. I spent I spent all my life with this story perpetuating in my head, and
So
it was,
it's, you know, be patient.
You there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It was frozen. You're back. There you are.
Yay. Whew. I asked my sister and the angels to clear that up. So
Excellent. I was saying that, yeah, the having self-awareness has become a strong part of my now knowledge, and reframing the story in my head. It was years of this false story that I was perpetuating for myself. over and over again.
That's exactly what it is. And again, it's you have to be patient and you have to change that dialogue. And yeah, it's been going on for years. So it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, that's the strongest thing right there. But slowly but surely, day by day, moment by moment, that's the only way. People want that result. The only way it can happen. Like I say, today we're recording episode 91. Do you know how I got to episode 91? One episode at a time. And that's the same process for working on myself and no longer hiding and putting my best foot forward and giving my best and being my best for now, which should and will always improve along the way, but it's a slow and steady process. And that's really what you have to come to terms with. Just replace one small thing every day, and that builds on itself. By definition, no other option.
That's correct. Absolutely. That's what I do. I still do it. I'm sure you do too. You know, we're thriving and striving. You know, we want to be the best that we can be, and we have to do it in baby steps for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How are your children today?
Oh, yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, my oldest daughter is now 33 and my twins are 27. Wow. And I have a younger daughter now. She's 16. But yeah, they're all good. You know, my boys don't really remember my sister, but my oldest daughter does. And, you know, it's so interesting because my oldest daughter has a lot of my sister in her. It's so weird. And I tell her that all the time. But yeah, and I think that's just another example of how our loved ones come through. But yeah, they're doing good. They all work for the mine here in Stafford, or my daughter works in Tucson. But yeah, my daughter, she went to school. She's a microbiologist. My boys, they work at the mine, copper mine. So they're all doing really good, and they all have kids of their own now.
Yeah. So taking all of this and putting it into practice, how does all of this translate to a better life and business, as you've seen?
Well, it's working through grief, but it's more than that, because it's building, like you said, you're building yourself, you're making yourself stronger and realizing that there's really nothing you can't do. So when you're drilling through judgments, you know, it doesn't matter if it's grief or working, you know, there's judgments everywhere, but working on this little piece will definitely expand. And when you're happier, the world around you will be happier. And setting that example for people, even people you don't know, just being nice to somebody at the grocery store will brighten their day. And so it is, I know it might sound cheesy, but it will change the world. You know, it will change your world, and eventually it will have that ripple effect.
That's what it's about. Tell us about a time you were frozen in fear and you knew you had to work through it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so many. I think the one that sticks out was definitely working at the prison. It was having to deal with the inmates for the first time. That really sticks out to me. Another time is working, funny enough, that training, the media training I went to, because I wanted to do such a good job, and I wanted to prove to myself that I was okay, that I started getting really nervous, because I knew there was something much bigger than just doing media for the prison. I knew it. I couldn't explain it, didn't understand it. I was scared to death. I was sick. And at the time, I did ask my sister to help me. So, and she did. I made it through. But, you know, and I know that might be not what you were expecting, but that totally threw me for a loop. And again, I think it was maybe not necessarily the media training, but the fact that there was something bigger that I was going to put to use because of that. And I knew that, and I was scared because, like, I have to go through this process. Like, I have to do what I'm doing. I have to help people through their grief. it's not an option. And it's scary sometimes, you know, because you're reliving all of those feelings. So it's just
Yeah.
knowing that I was going to have to expand on that media training. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I absolutely love that you had the awareness to know, okay, I'm scared out of my mind for this media training, but I also know that this isn't the means to the end. There is something so much bigger that this is prepping me for at a future time unknown. And that is applicable in every way to what we are doing in every regard, in every moment, no matter what the deal is, no matter what we feel is scaring us or that we're fearful of. Go through it, because you will become the stronger, better person for it just by the nature of experiencing it. And is that a frozen Misty? She'll be back. She always returns. We'll hold. We'll wait. Well, in the meantime, thank you all for commenting and joining us here. It's good to have you. Oh, looks like she popped off the line. I'm sure she'll be back. We'll give it 30 or 60 seconds, and I'm sure she'll return to us. We'll just wait. How you feeling, though? You have thoughts about this? Comments?
Sorry.
That's okay. You're back. We're
I'm
good.
back. Yeah.
Good.
There we go.
Good to see you. I knew you'd be back. That's what I was saying. So yes, to recap, I was, that whole thing is just phenomenal. How you saw the bigger picture of that this moment, and again, you have to give yourself that that scenario that, okay, whether I want this or not, like this or not, am fearful of this or not, there's something bigger and better because of this. Naturally, that's all it's about.
Yeah, it is. And that's that's the difference between like, well, you and me. And it's not that it's better or anything, but stepping through the fear, once you do it, you're like, what was I so worried about? It's ridiculous. But some people are just so stuck in fear that they don't step forward. And that is a huge disservice to all of us, because we don't know what they're afraid of, or great things that they could be accomplishing, but stuck in fear. And I've realized that fear is just the mind. It's the brain just trying to protect us.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And from whatever it is, failure, success, whatever it is. And we just need to tell the brain to shut up a little bit and just do it anyways. Yeah.
Looking back on a younger version of yourself, what conversation would you have with that person?
Yeah. That would be, I wish you could do that, really, because I would tell myself that, you know what, it's going to be okay. It's awesome who you are, because I had low self-esteem growing when I was like a teenager. Most of us do. That it's great that you are not like everybody else. You're not supposed to be like everybody else. And it's great that you can connect with people who have passed away, and your life is going to be amazing. Just step through, just take that step. Don't be afraid. I mean, I wish I could go back and tell myself that would have saved me a lot of heartache.
Do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
I do. Yeah, I do. Everything happens for a reason. There is no doubt in my mind, my sister and I were placed together so she can help me help other people, and I could learn from her tragedy. No doubt in my mind. So it happens for a reason. And sometimes, like I was saying, we make those free will choices, but even those, eventually we will come back to what we were supposed to learn. It might be in a different way. It might be a more difficult way, but yeah, everything happens for a reason, without a doubt.
Are you spiritual or religious in any ways?
I'm spiritual for sure. Yeah. Definitely spiritual.
And what do you believe happens when it's all over, when our time here on earth comes to an end?
Um, I just think that we change forms, you know. I just think that we're just using this body temporarily, and there is no end. I mean, there's end to the physical sense, but there is no end. The soul will always live on forever.
Beautiful. How do we wrap this up into a nice, beautiful bow for our listeners? What are we really talking about here? What is this all about? What are they expected to do?
Yeah. Honestly, they are supposed to be who they are supposed to be. They are supposed to follow their passion, and they're supposed to be their true self without fear. Fear is there for a reason, for the fight or flight kind of thing, but not because you are supposed to be afraid to live your purpose. They need to live their purpose. Um, and again, they're doing a disservice to me, to you, because it's that ripple effect. When they're happy living their purpose, the ripple effect will occur. So, when you think of it that way, it's like it's my duty to follow my purpose. And like you were saying, asking me if everything happens for a reason, it absolutely does, which tells me that our creator did not make a mistake by making us, because there's a reason for it. And it's up to us to step into that. It's our duty to step into that, and it's our duty to live our purpose, to help each other, and to learn so our soul can expand.
With that message, what is the very next thing that anybody listening can do, put into action?
Yeah, for that. What I would suggest, the first thing that's coming to my mind, and I call them my downloads. So my download is telling me that people need to, a basic step would be just to journal, daydream, journal, write down what it is you want to do, without fear of, or without thoughts of, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources.
True.
Write it down. And once you do that, you're putting it into motion.
Great. I fully agree. Couldn't agree more. I do that every day. And yeah, it's the thing.
Yeah.
I will leave you with this final question. Misty Thompson.
Yes.
How would you like to be remembered?
I would definitely, well, first, I want to be remembered, I want my children to remember me, that I always did the best I could, because that's all we ever do. We always do the best we can do. But I want people to remember me that I stood for who I really was. I might have been afraid, but I pushed through it, and I was my true self. And as a result of me being my true self, I was able to help them with their purpose, discovering their purpose.
Absolutely beautiful. As you are, Misty. I thank
Thanks.
you for, of course, I thank you for joining us, for showing up, for opening up, for really giving us what you did today. Really cool to have you on.
Thank you. I totally enjoyed it. It was great being here.
Glad to hear that. And I hope it was great being here for everybody tuning in, whether it's to the live broadcast or the native podcast in its native format, either on Apple, Google, or Spotify. Whatever the case, head on over, leave a little review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to share this, that will be good too, to let other people know you found value from it. We're going to do this again before too long. Thank you for spending your time with us. Until we do it again, go get them. All right. We are off the podcast, still
Awesome.
live on Facebook. How you feeling?
Very good. Yeah. Really good.
So I read most of this book, From Grief to Acceptance. Where would you like people to get a hold of this?
Yeah. They can definitely go to Amazon. I'm working on Barnes and Noble, especially in the Tucson area. I'm working on putting it in the stores.
That'd be awesome.
Website for sure. MistyMThompson.com. So they can go to my website, Amazon, all of those.
This is amazing because this is not your first book, is it?
It's not. Yeah.
You have how many books to your name?
Well, I have 2 solo books, and then I've done 8 compilation books.
8 compilations. So you're a veteran on Amazon. I've seen your Amazon page.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how, if you would have told me that 4 years ago, I was going to have 10 books on Amazon under my author profile, I would have thought you were crazy. But I do, and I have 2 more that I'm going to be working on too here in the near future. But yeah.
Wow. And what is down the road for you? What's the next iteration for Misty Thompson? What happens next?
Yeah, just continuing to promote this book. But I have an interest in children's book. I actually just sporadic. I mean, it was just like a one-time, sat at the computer, 10 minutes later, I wrote a children's book. So I kind of just saved it and put it away. It wasn't time yet. So it's just a small little book about intuition and, again, vulnerability and, the different types of, whether you're clairaudient or, clairvoyant, those things, because I believe a lot of kids are, and, parents don't understand what it is. So, and it's interesting because my grandkids are totally like that.
You have grandkids?
I have 4 grandkids. Yeah. My oldest grandson is 12. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. My sweeties. They're my sweet boys. Yeah. But yeah, so definitely that. I'm looking at doing that. But I'm kind of just taking things as they come. I'm learning more now that I'm older that I have a basis, like I do my business and I'm working on online courses and that kind of thing. But who knows, tomorrow an opportunity might present itself that I had no idea about. And I just kind of go with the flow when it comes to things like that.
Do you find that your role today as mother, as grandmother has changed, quote unquote, because of what you went through and your upbringing? Or are you like deliberately a certain way and a certain person because of the way you were brought up with your parents and with your sister?
Yeah. I'm more encouraging of my kids as well. My boys are older now, but when they were younger, it was go do what you want to do. Don't be afraid. Go, so they they never listened to their parents, of course, but yeah, but my grandkids too, I see them differently, like, just not being afraid. I try to encourage them. My this is what popped in my head. My youngest grandson's 2.5, and he's at that age where he's climbing all over the furniture.
I have a 3-year-old.
So you get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to constantly be like, you can't do that, don't do that, because in their mind they're going to say, well, I can't do that, I'm not supposed to do that. But for them, it's climbing the couch. I'm there to support them, but I want them to learn how to climb on the couch. I know that sounds kind of deep, but it's more than just climbing on the couch. I want them to know that they don't have to always be afraid. Be cautious, be aware of your surroundings, but climb the couch if you want to climb the couch. But, for a 2-year-old, that's their, their big thing in life is climbing up on the chair that they're not supposed to climb on. But knowing that grandma will be there to support them if they fall. Wow. So I do that. I've been doing that a lot.
Amazing. We'll leave it at that. Again, thank you so much. Really cool to connect. We're connected now for life. I'm happy.
Yes, I love it.
Good. Right. We'll stay in touch, and I hope to stay in touch with everybody who's joining us. Always good to see you guys in-house supporting. Thank you very much. Thank you, Misty. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
See you soon.
I enjoyed it. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.